This may ruffle some feathers here, and I have been going back and forth on what to say it, how to be respectful, all of the things. But what I want to talk about today is Marjorie Taylor Greene's comments to Jasmine Crockett and her response. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is a member of something in Congress, insulted Representative Crockett's appearance by dissing her false eyelashes or something. She made it personal, she made it about appearance. And this is in a professional setting with a meeting of senators and representatives in Washington, D.C. And as typical racist white women do, she insulted a female Black leader. And I know I'm hesitating a bit. Please be patient with me, but there's so many emotions coming up in me as a Black woman. And knowing how that disrespect and the emotional labor Black women have to deal with every time they try to get into white spaces, or they are in white spaces and they have a seat at the table, but their voices are discounted and ignored and insulted at that very table that they fought so hard to get a seat at. And Jasmine Crockett, in one of her responses, said something about, and I have to read it because I just found it funny. She said, "I'm just curious to better understand your ruling. If someone on this committee starts talking about somebody's bleach blonde, bad built, butch body, that would not be engaging in personalities, correct?" So, and I'm sure she was feeling a type of way. And I'm not going to assume what she was feeling, but I know she was feeling something. And, you know, when Black women speak up for themselves or match the energy of disrespectful people in their jobs, organizations, institutions, they are labeled as angry Black women, which is not a label that has ever been assigned or prescribed to a white woman who says something cruel, mean, racist, and insulting. I've never heard the term angry white woman. Have you? But I have heard white women tears. I've seen white women cry wolf on many occasions and become, as the phrase is, a Karen in a lot of situations and get people on their sides. And what I am seeing, what I am reading is that Black women, y'all are, a lot of buttons are being pushed and we are exhausted. We are exhausted of the emotional labor. We are exhausted of having to work so hard to be at a higher level of professionalism than our peers in our workplaces, in our communities, in our institutions, in our academic spaces as well. We are held to such a different and higher standard that, I mean, I don't know how much y'all are going to expect us to carry and not break. Like, this is May, and we are in Mental Health Awareness Month, and these microaggressions, these unconscious biases, these conscious biases have an effect on our mental health and well-being. And if we were to show any crack in our armor into us being strong Black women who could take it, as if we don't feel pain, if we don't have our hearts hurt and broken, if we were to show any crack, we are labeled as angry Black women. We are labeled as unprofessional. We are labeled as, see, yeah, you can't bring them into these spaces, or however it shows up. And so my rant for today is, everybody take a breath and know that we need white women to show up for us. I know there are a lot of white women who are allies out there, and I'm not saying we can't do this without you. Don't get me wrong. Don't be on that train. But what I'm saying is allies, allies, allies. I read something on LinkedIn this morning from a white woman saying how we need to do better as white women. That's how she was addressing white women. And I was so appreciative of that, because nobody is listening to us, and everybody is making us work all the time to be treated fairly and equitably. And yes, we have a seat at the table, but we're told to be shh. We're told to shut up. We have to listen to microaggressions. We have to listen and be the recipient of unconscious biases. And we have to be the recipient of overt racism, even though you don't see it as overt, because maybe you're not burning a cross on your desk, or maybe you're not in public using the N-word, but you sure are thinking it, and you sure are using it at the dinner table with your family. My point in sharing this with you is we need allies. We need people to support us in the fight for respect, for having our voices being heard and acknowledged and respected in the places where we have seats at the table, whether it's from a white man or white women. You know, letting these ultra conservative white women railroad Black and brown and other minoritized women in Congress and in anywhere is not acceptable. And we need voices to speak out against it that are not just coming from us. We need people speaking up for us. It is essential, because they're not listening to us. We've been fighting this fight for hundreds and hundreds of years. And people may criticize me and not believe that there are white people out there who are allies, but I've met plenty of white people who are allies, who are in the muck and the mire of working on their own unconscious bias while fighting for justice and equity and anti-racism causes. I've met these women. I've met a lot of them, and I'm not saying they're perfect. And I'm not saying that we all don't have unconscious biases to get over, but we need to recognize them in ourselves when they show up, and do the active work in personal development to move through them, move past them. When you know better, you do better, to continue learning and growing in this work. None of us are perfect, myself included. And I have to be honest with you, I often hesitate, calling out white women and white men and saying the words, because I'm like, oh, how can I be more politically correct? But let's be real. Yes, we're talking Black and white in this situation, but there are a lot of other identities that are not racial, ethnic, or cultural. They are with different abilities, different neurodivergencies, with different lived experiences. So I get it. When we talk about diversity and inclusion, it's encompassing way, way more than it did back in 2020, when Black Lives Matter was a prominent voice in kind of the racial upheaval that occurred when George Floyd's public lynching was witnessed by everyone around this world. And so my point in sharing this with you is DE&I work is not just Black and white, but sometimes it is Black and white, and we've got to call it out for what it is in Black and white, and recognize the emotional toll that having to fight for our voices to be heard at tables we are granted a seat at, is taxing on our mental and emotional and physical well-being. And so if you call yourself an ally, if you believe in equality and justice and inclusion, we need all hands on deck to speak up for these bullying tactics. And, let's be honest, people are more braver about being bullies and calling people names and reverting to schoolyard tactics since ex-President Trump took office. 8 years ago now, I guess it was. The things that he said, the people he made fun of, how harsh and cruel he is. It's giving people agency. It's given white people agency to be overtly racist. And we need white people who aren't overtly and are just covertly, but are willing to learn and grow, to stand up and to speak out more and to defend, because honestly, we're tired. We are tired. We're not going to give up because we're tired, but we may need to take a rest because we're tired. Being tired doesn't mean we give up the fight. Don't get my message wrong. But being tired means that when we're resting, it would be lovely to have someone else stand up and take over so that we can take a nap. Okay? That's what I have to say today. Thank you for listening.